I was coming across the line every lap, and I'd see the gap go up. It got to the point where the teamwork, they'd put the board out, and they were like this, Lucas, stop. I was like, guys, I'm having a great time. Might have something later in the year. That's an exclusive for you, actually, technically, as well. But I took my championship trophy, sat on the car, and took a picture, and it was like, wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. We're the Road to Glory podcast. I'm Juliet.
And I'm Cecilia. And today we are obviously joined by a special guest. Do you want to introduce yourself?
So, hello everyone, my name's Lucas, I'm 24 from Irvine, Scotland, and I am a Formula 1 Esports World Champion, or it's called F1 Sim Racing now, to use the right terminology, and yeah, I'm an aspiring race driver.
We are happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
We have some questions for you. Some of them we've come up with ourselves, but also some questions from our audience. So we have just mixed them together. So we'll go through first some esport or sim racing questions and then move on to real life racing. We've kind of struggled with what to name it because obviously esport is also real. So
Yeah, awesome. Look forward to it.
I think we could probably just jump straight into it. And I want to start off by saying we really admire your energy and passion for racing. Where did this come from and who inspires you?
Well, I've been following racing literally my whole life, so I think if I was to take it all the way back, I remember, I'd say it's probably, to pick like a moment or like a year, I'd say 2007, when Lewis Hamilton sort of came into Formula 1. He's, to this day my hero. He's the person that inspired me to start racing. So yeah, I'm very lucky that he's still racing as well, so I still get to actively support him. So yeah, I'm very fortunate in that respect. But yeah, he's been my inspiration, and even just generally, through even simple things like when I was a kid, when the movie Cars came out, I was obsessed with it. I've literally loved cars since I was young. I would always, whether it's watching Top Gear or getting like any magazines or just so many things. I just always loved cars. I was always obsessed with it in school. And yeah, I've always been passionate about racing. And yeah, from there, I started karting from, I think it was 2009 was the first time I tried a go-kart when I was 7 years old. So yeah, very, very young. And I've always followed and had a passion for motorsport in that respect. It still just keeps growing to this day. It's literally, I can't imagine my life without it, if that makes sense. It's just always been what everything revolves around. So yeah, from a very young age.
So it's like it's a part of you.
Oh, for sure. It's I mean, you can't see it in the camera, but like behind me I've got like so many like different pictures on the wall. I mean, I've got, there's a canvas of, I was very lucky to get a picture with Lewis 2018. It was in the pit lane walk, and it was like the one and only chance I've ever had to meet Lewis, and I managed to get a picture, so I'm so really lucky I got that. So I've got a canvas there, I've got a couple of trophies there, a picture of me karting there, a picture of Lewis in one of the McLarens. It's just motorsport everywhere, and I can't imagine how my life would be without it. Honestly, I have no idea how it would be. So for me, it's I live and breathe it, quite literally, right? So yeah.
So yeah, I assume you're saying Lewis is your favorite driver, but do you have a favorite team? Have you moved to Ferrari to back Lewis, or do you stay with Mercedes? Like, do you have a favorite team?
So growing up, I was always a massive fan of McLaren. McLaren was my my favorite team for when Lewis began racing with them, and then I always sort of rooted for them as sort of my favourite team in Formula 1, and of course I had the privilege of getting to represent the McLaren brand for a couple of years as well, racing with them in the esports world, and of course winning championships with them as well, which will forever be one of my greatest honours and privileges that I've ever had the chance to do, because I know it's not something that you get to do every day. I don't think it gets lost on me, the privilege of it. I always try and make sure I remember that, how special it is, because it's something that sometimes when you're in the moment and you're working really hard on certain things, you sometimes forget like what you get to do sometimes is really cool. So yeah, but growing up, my team was McLaren for sure.
Okay, so now obviously you mentioned that you were lucky enough to drive for McLaren in esports. Basically, now you have raced for a couple of different teams. So, like, what was your journey into F1 esports, and like, how did you end up with McLaren and get that opportunity?
Yeah, so esports for me, you actually have to stretch it a little bit further back because I touched on it at the beginning. I did some karting. I started driving a go-kart when I was younger. From like 2009 was the first time I drove one. I did, national and club level go-karting, with the dream of, like so many other people becoming an F1 driver. And yeah, I started karting, competing. I had to stop doing that in 2015 because it's the financial aspect of racing is of course very very difficult, and my family gave it everything. They sacrificed a lot for me to sort of chase that dream of going racing, which I'm to this day forever grateful for, and I've tried to repay that faith back, and still pursuing that dream. So yeah, but then in that sort of time between sort of starting esports and stopping karting, you sort of think, what's next? And then yeah, esports comes along. So long story short, esports comes along, and I'm like, okay, maybe that's a different way I go racing. Maybe it's not in the real car, but maybe I could still do what I love through that. And yeah, got signed with it was Racing Point at the time, which is now of course Aston Martin Formula One team in 2019. Which was a huge moment for me in that time. I was very, very emotional about it. I was screaming and shouting, and tears were flowing. It was a very big moment in 2019, and then yeah, began my esports journey there. Raced for them for 3 seasons. And their first season as Aston Martin in 2021, which was my breakout season in F1 Esports. It took a bit longer than I'd have liked to, have a properly good season, but yeah, started taking my first victories, fought for the championship in 2021. And then moving on to 2022, I joined McLaren Shadow, which was a huge moment for me. Very, very, I'll never forget the first time visiting the MTC, the factory, seeing Lewis's cars, and it was, very, very special. And then, first season with McLaren, we won the team's championship and I won the drivers' championship. So, it was a very full circle moment because I remember when I won it. We were on the boulevard at MTC, and Lewis's car was behind me, the one that he won the championship in, literally his car. So I took my championship trophy, sat on the car, and took a picture, and it was like, wow, what a moment, and that'll stay with me forever. So yeah, I smell about it even talking about it, just because it's such a wonderful memory. So cool.
Yeah, that must have been absolutely surreal to be there in that moment. Also, now you mentioned the MTC. How often did you get to go there with your time with McLaren?
I was quite fortunate because I was there relatively often. It was, every, sometimes it was couple of times a month. Sometimes it was, every few months. But when we were competing there in 2022, because we actually raced from the factory, which was a very, very cool experience. So we actually physically raced, I think it was 3 out of the 4 events in the 2022 Esports Championship from the McLaren Shadow Studio, as it was. So we would do like a 2-week boot camp prior to the race week, or the races. So we'd be there. I'd drive down from Scotland, bring all my stuff, and get set up, and we would go racing. And it was a wonderful time going there. I loved it. Like 2 weeks is a long time, but for me, I could go there every day. I could have went there every day. I loved the place. I spent, loved being there, and it was great to spend that time with some good people as well. It's such a privilege.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell, I too am a very big McLaren fan. So it's literally bucket list moment. So I can imagine how incredible it must have been for you as a lifelong McLaren fan. But I'm also really interested to see how do you get into the zone before an esports race? Is it different to when you race in a real life car?
I think there's some similarities. I mean, you always have the butterflies. You've always got that anticipation. I naturally put a lot of pressure on myself, and I'm guilty of being like an overthinker. I like to really be. I like to overanalyze everything. I love details. So for me, I'm thinking of as many things as I can. But when you get in the moment, you're just in the moment. Like everything you think about before is to the side, and you're just full focus. For me, on a race day, I think what I like to do back then was I would always like to just go on a run in the morning, even if it's for 10 minutes, even if it was on a treadmill outside. I would always like to go, get some fresh air or whatnot get my heart going a bit, because when you jump into an esports qualifying session, you'd be amazed at the physical stress as well. It's not just the mental side of it, but it's also like physically your body, your heart rate goes really high. I remember, you can see, I wear a whoop now, which I seen the data for in one of the latest seasons I've done, and like you can see exactly the moment where your stress is at the highest. Like your heart rate is like it's 110, 120, 130, 140. It goes up because it's massive stress. So I like to go on a run in the morning to sort of make that initial hit of that first qualifying lap be a little bit less intense in a way. And then just even if it's some breathing, some stretching, just whatever made me feel good. Honestly, that's really what it came down to. It didn't need to be too specific. It was all about, if I felt good physically, then I was more likely to perform well on the track. And I still remember very specific races and moments. So I just felt so good, and it matched the on track. So it was, for me, it's just, if I felt good, it just made everything that little bit easier. But of course, racing's racing, and anything can happen. So it can be it's always a challenge, no matter how well you prepare. The best laid plans can always be it can always be chaos. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So now, obviously, this past weekend, the F1 Sim Racing 2026 season started, and we saw that you were in the audience instead of behind the wheel. Now, how difficult was it to decide to leave your F1 Sim Racing days behind? And did you feel like you wanted to be behind the wheel again when you were there?
I mean, there's always small moments where you're thinking oh, there's a bit of rain in qualifying. I love the rain, so I was like, oh, that would have been cool. Or I look at Bahrain, for example, which was one of the races, has always been one of my best track. I mean, it is my best track historically. So you have little moments, but for me, it actually wasn't for this season, because I've sort of labelled it as a season off for me, because I wanted in the short term to reprioritise on some things. I think towards the end of last year, I had a lot of things, personally put into some perspective through lots of different things, which, some's public, some's not public. But at the end of the day, for me, short term, I wanted to focus on enjoying certain things more, and of course putting some time and energy into getting into a real car, which we can get onto. But for me, it wasn't actually that hard a decision, because I weighed a lot of things up. But yeah, of course, it was just lovely when I was at the event there at the weekend. It was lovely to see so many people again, and I still didn't get the chance to catch up with everybody. There's just so the community is quite tightly knit in a way, so you're always seeing someone that you know or that you've worked with, and it was really nice to catch up with so many people. But yeah, it was. You have little moments where you think, that would be cool, or it would have been nice to be in this moment, and that's natural. But I think for the large part, it was actually quite enjoyable to watch and not have the stress, because the stress is massive. It's a lot of work to go into these events. I think that's the thing that people don't naturally have the opportunity to see, is the day-to-day side of it. And everybody's different. I mean, everyone has a different way of preparing, and for me, the way I looked at it is, it's either 110% or don't bother. I don't do half measures. So for me, if I'm doing it, it's 110. And yeah, for me, it was quite fun actually to see it. It didn't feel as weird as I thought it maybe would, actually. But there's always moments where you're like, that's fun, that's cool. I would have liked to have been in this scenario, but yeah, that's natural, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Also, now you mentioned the stress of actually competing in F1 esports. How difficult would you say it is to compete in the series with the level of drivers being so high, and also the time difference in qualifying being so small, and in the races also sometimes the racing isn't the cleanest. So how would you describe your time in esports?
Yeah, I mean, that race at Bahrain yesterday as we record this, oh my god, I was in the crowd like this. I couldn't believe it was crazy. But no, I think the level is insane. Like, the drivers are all, there's no weakness really. Everyone's very very strong, and I think that's the side that people sometimes, I wish people would maybe understand a little bit more, is that, the difference between being, at the very front and at the very back is actually really, is the margins are so fine. It doesn't take much to be on either side of the coin in a way. So you have to be, every variable needs to be on the money when you're at the front. You know, you need to be confident on the brakes, on the throttle, with the feeling you have through just all the details, you know, whether it's the feeling you have in the steering, just on the driving variables. And then, of course, there's the preparation, your strategies, how confident you are in your qualifying pace, your race pace, your communication with your team, your reactions and certain moments with decision making, how you react to wet weather. You know, I could go on and on and on. There's so many variables. And when you're at the front, all of these things it's like a well-oiled machine. You're all super dialed in. But all it takes is one of these things to be off, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in the mixture of chaos. And that's, you know, I found myself in pretty much every situation imaginable, really. Now that I've done 6 seasons so far. And yeah, I feel like I've experienced pretty much everything. You know, I've experienced the extreme stress of fighting for a championship, you know, 2 times. 2 times. And thankfully got one of them. And then, I've also been in the stress of, you know, when, you know, variables aren't in the way you would like them to be, and how easy it is to be, you know, at the front, at the back, at the front, at the back. It's so tight, and it doesn't, you know, just because, you know, things fluctuate a little bit doesn't mean necessarily, you know, you're doing a terrible job. Sometimes it's so tight, and I think that's, you know, the situation a lot of drivers can find themselves in. So it's ridiculously close, and it takes so much effort and consistency and just being able to deliver under the pressure as well, which is something that I think if you were to ask all the esports drivers what's the hardest part about esports, they'd say the mental side, the pressure, the being able to perform every single lap, every single time, especially when it's that the margins are so fine. So yeah, it's intense.
Definitely sounds it. We kind of touched on it a little bit there, but how would you say your mindset is different racing in esports and then also comparing it to real life? Do you take like a bit more risk when you're racing on the sim because you know you can't be hurt?
I think just by default you do, yeah, because when in the sim it's all about absolute perfection. You need to be so close to the physical limit of what's possible to be, you know, close to the front, really. Whereas in the real car, I still remember actually, like, when I was doing some of my first proper races in the car, I actually had to start, and it sounds, you have to take this with a little bit of a pinch of salt, but I had to lower my standards because the level of perfection I was trying to achieve was just simply not possible. And I would always come in angry about something. So I'm driving terrible. This isn't right. That isn't right. This corner was rubbish. And it's like, Lucas, you're literally fastest, or you're second. Like, why are you upset? So there's you have to actually maybe there's that from that going from the sim then back into the real car. It took a moment to maybe understand how I needed to approach things in a way. I still keep that insanely high bar of precision, but I've refined the way I look at it in a way. You know, I don't get insanely angry at myself for messing up a corner and losing half a tenth, say, you know, whereas I would in the sim. In the real car, there's almost like the way you build up can be slightly different, because in the real car you don't have as much testing either. But I like that in a way sometimes. You know, you have to jump in and drive, and it's more instinctive, it's more reactive, it's more sometimes pure. And that's something that I really enjoy and relish the challenge of in a real car, is the jump in and go element of it. But the real car, there's nothing beats the sense of speed, the risk, the adrenaline. It's insane. Like when you get really going, it's like, wow, this is awesome, and it's the thing I love doing. There's nothing to me that comes close to that feeling as when you're absolutely going for it and you're just in flow. It is the best feeling. I can't put it to words really. Like just that feeling. It's the only I haven't found anything that comes close to that or even feels remotely the same. It's such a feeling, and of course there's the element of risk as well. You know, there's consequences to making mistakes, but maybe in a weird way that's thrilling. Like I enjoy that in a way, like the dance between putting it on the edge and, you know, getting rewarded or, you know, being punished by it. It's a thrill. But I think, you know, other race drivers say the same thing as well, where it's like it's a risk rewards and it's quite fun. So yeah, it's a special feeling for sure.
Yeah. I can only imagine how insane it must be racing in a real race car. As like, I don't even have a driver's license, so kind of funny compared to the fact that I love motorsports. But we'll get some more to real life racing in a bit. But we have a couple of more questions for the esports part of it. We had a question from someone asking if there's something that the general public doesn't know about esport that you would like to highlight.
I think a lot of it does come down to like the behind the scenes side of things, where you are, it's what goes into it. People publicly just see what is broadcasted, so like the live events or the qualifying or the races. What a lot of people don't see is actually how hard it is, and it's not. We're not just jumping on having a laugh for a couple of hours and playing a game. It's not. We don't treat it as fun and games at all. Or at least I don't. I mean, I think for me, it's when I've raced in esports, I am treating it insanely serious. I've always been too serious. I'm quite a serious person in a way. I'm always very, I'm quite intense in that way. I'm, but that's just my nature. I always like to be really, try and do things the right way, but it's a lot of work, the amount of effort that goes into practicing, the training, the preparation, the detail that you have to go to as well, the amount of things you're trying to work out, the amount of, things you're trying on the setup of the car. You've got so many variables. Sometimes I wish it was as simple as we just jump on and drive and that's it, but there's a lot of work that goes into trying to find the best performance out of every possible factor, whether that's the tires, the different strategies, the setup of the cars, and and any one of these things you can go even further into detail. With the car, you're trying, what's the best wings to use aerodynamically, how do you want to set the ride height up, what suspension characteristics would you like, tire pressures, there's just so many variables, and you have to find in esports there's always a sort of a meta, as we would call it, like where there's a sort of philosophy that is just the general way you want to be running things because that's the fastest. But even within that, there's a lot of nuance that you can play with, and in some situations there's still advantages to be gained. So you're always looking for the finest little advantages. And I think that's the things you don't see is all of that. The majority of the work that you do just never sees the light of day. And that's what and that's what your life is. You wake up, you train, you drive, you go to sleep, you repeat 7 days a week. It's everything. And it takes, if you want to win a championship, it takes everything. And it pushes you mentally to the brink of, going a little bit insane. Maybe for me it's because my gift and my curse is that I care a lot. So when I was fighting for that championship, I wanted it more than anybody, and I was, so focused on making sure that everything I could do within my power, within my training, within my driving, within my own performance was at its peak. And I guess when I look back at it now, I can at least be proud that I know I did those things and that I won that championship by just by wanting it more than anyone and by performing when it mattered and all these things. But it takes everything for it. It's so hard. And yeah, so I'm very grateful for, being able to sort of experience these things. It teaches you a lot about yourself as well. You learn, it's like a voyage of self-discovery when you're doing these things, because, you're being pushed to the limit. You're being pushed out of your comfort zone all the time. And it's how you respond in those moments. Like, when you're under severe pressure, it's like, well, I have the decision of I could crumble and everything's over, or you have the opportunity to do something magical and just pull out, a lap when it matters. That's the beauty of competing in these moments. But these aren't necessarily public things that you can see when watching on a screen, right? It's human. It's a human level, and it's how you collaborate with your team, how you work with your engineer. I was very fortunate to have a great working relationship with my. I had the same engineer from the 3 years when I was with McLaren. I had the same engineer, Antoine, and we had a really good working relationship, and I'm very grateful for the amount of work he put in as well, because it's not just what you put in, it's what the whole team puts in. I've touched on the things that I control, but there's so much effort that goes in from a whole team perspective, right through the whole. Every individual has a role to play, and that all makes a difference, and then something that is so tight and close as it is, with the pecking order, percentages, it's a percentage game. You're looking for 1% everywhere, and that's how you ultimately make a difference over time. So yeah, it's a proper team sport as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I really wish we got to see a bit more behind the scenes with esports, because I feel like we just see the races, and it would be, as you're saying, so interesting to get everything behind the scenes. But do you think that sim racing has helped your readiness to be in GB4? And do you see it becoming a legitimate pathway for drivers transitioning into professional motorsports?
On that last point, I think it already is. I think it already is a vital part of driver training, preparation, and also learning how to navigate their way in racing. And for me, on the first part of that question with, how did that help me prepare for jumping into GB4 or real racing? Yes, without question. And I actually spoke to someone yesterday about it when I was at DreamHack for F1 Sim Racing and, for DreamHack itself. I don't treat driving on the sim and the real car as separate entities, if that makes sense. I treat it as driving is driving. The things I learn in the sim, I can transfer to the real car. The things I learn in the real car, I transfer to the sim. When I did GB4 for my half season in 2024, it was amazing the cross transferability that of certain details that I was going back and forth. Like my braking style in the real car, my tendencies in corner entry are the same. I always attack corner entry. I usually try and gain my lap time too much in the corner entry and not enough on the exit, and it's the exact same on the sim. I'll always try too hard on a corner entry, on the braking and these sort of things. So it's funny when you watch these identical tendencies in a GB4 car and then on the F1 game. Like it's for me, it's fully cross transferable, and that's why you see, I don't think it's a coincidence that Max Verstappen is as good as he is, and then you have, he's a demon on the sim as well. I think that you could say the same about a lot of race drivers. There's a lot. I think when you see a lot of the young up and coming F4 drivers that are a hell of a lot younger than me, they're all on the sim now, and that's the way it should be, because the sim is so useful. You can learn so much on the sim, and then jump into the real car, and it helps your readiness. I mean, I've historically never been someone that has had a lot of testing opportunities before I've raced, and I've always had to sort of arrive and drive and try and get up to speed very quickly. And that I think that works, sort of ties into my overthinking nature, is that I would always, when I raced in GB4, there was a running joke in 2024 with KMR, the team I raced with, of, right guys, Lucas needs to watch his onboards, let him overanalyze everything. It'd be always overanalyze, because after every session I will watch, if I have the onboard, I will watch every single lap I've done at least once through, and then probably more and more. I'll always watch every lap I've driven, because I need to learn it, because I'm limited on laps, let's say. It's not like I can just go back out and drive forever. Testing's often limited. So for me, I focus a lot on the process and making sure that when I'm not on the track, I'm at least learning for when I next go on it. So I really like to be focused on the details, and that's something that I think is implemented. When I don't drive for months, I'll often just pull up onboards and watch my driving and think, okay, what did I do here? Because when, it all just sort of seeps into your mind in a way. And then when you go on the track next, it's like, okay, I was doing this different. This is improved. I need to work on this. And it builds a self-awareness of your own driving. And, okay, this is what I need to work on. So, yeah, for me, to sort of get back to the root of the question, it's, for me, driving is driving. Sim, whatnot, I'm always learning something. And that's something that I think is will only become more and more of a more prominent, I guess, as time goes on, that, the work you put in on the sim, even if it's just driving anything, is directly, helpful for your real racing. And I think that I guess you could use my career in a way as a bit of a case study for that, in a way, how it's, without the sim, there's no way I'd have been able to have achieved the things that I've done without having trained on the sim beforehand.
No, definitely it seems clear that the skills that you learn in the sim are very much transferable to real life racing. We also had a question from someone asking, like, how different is sim racing games, like, for example, iRacing, to like the real thing?
Every single platform, car, track has its own differences. Some are really close and good and have a lot of similarities. Some are a little bit different. it really just depends on the car and the track sometimes. But I'd say, even if there is niche differences, I'd say there's still a lot of use in just doing training on the sim, because you'll learn something. You're always gonna, I don't think there's much that is like useless, if that makes sense. You can always learn something. So for me, for example, I did a test. I did my first laps of the year earlier this month, and a very last minute opportunity that came up to do some testing, which was really awesome. Driving a new truck. I drove, and I was in France. It was my first time out the UK driving in a track that isn't in the UK. And then I was driving in a closed cockpit race car for the first time. So it was like, everything was so new and everything was so different. But even I just did a couple of laps on the sim in the days beforehand on a Assetto Corsa version, a mod, literally just a mod of the track that was just to get my eye in on the layout. And I downloaded a mod of the car that I'm going to be driving, and I think it's like a second and a bit off the pace or something like that, but it was still so useful for me to learn just small visual cues of, we're going this way, we're going that way. It just means you arrive a bit more prepared, and that's what I did. And then I went to this test. I was up to speed within 10 laps, and I was within like 3/10 of my PB from the whole test after 15 laps. So that gave me great confidence that, right, I've just arrived into something that I've remotely never drove before, and I've got on it. And that's how you build the confidence, you build that sort of that knowledge, that experience. So yeah, for the sim, I think that even if there is differences, there's so much use in just doing a bit of preparation. And I think that I think F1 teams invest so much in the simulation technology for a reason. Especially now in this year's regulations, where it's you've got to have the batteries so optimized to be remotely fast. So simulation and sim training, there's always a use for it, and I think it's any up and coming driver now is going to be on the sim. I mean, and if they're not, they're simply not going to be as strong. For me, that's fundamentally like just fact almost. For me, I just see it as driving on the sim is good training. It's a good, useful tool. And if you're wasting your own potential improvement, you can become you're robbing yourself of improvement by not doing like proper sim training or doing sim work or just driving on the sim generally, whether it's iRacing, Assetto Corsa. I've came from the F1 game, and the F1 game, historically has always had a lot of, always get poked a bit, because it's like, oh well, maybe it's not as realistic as other platforms, and is there validity to that? Yes, but has that stopped me from achieving what I've achieved? No. So I think that it's how you use your experiences and transfer them as well. There's no one correct answer, there's no one correct pathway. It's about using what you learn and applying it and building that. That's a skill set in its own. It's not easy. It's not a case of, okay, do all this in the sim and you'll jump in a real car and everything will be great. When you jump in a real car, there's certain things you can't train for, and that's the fact that it's real consequences, real speed, real G-force, all these real variables, and that's something you can't prepare for, and that's where the transferability comes in, where you've got to just get on it and go, and that's the hard part, but it's also the fun part, so it's it's quite good. So
Yeah, it is. And I mean, like, in this modern era of Formula One, why would you not use all the tools that are available to you to be the best that you can be? But continuing to kind of talk about more of the real life racing, so you started to get opportunities to race in real cars. What would you say that transition was initially like?
So I did my first ever circuit race weekend back in 2022, and that was in a Formula Ford, and that was I think before that experience, before we get onto that, I had one of the crazy experiences I've ever had was 2022 Race of Champions, and I had, going into that event, which I'd qualified for through the sim, I did my karting up to 2015, and I did 20 minutes in a BMW around Silverstone in 2019, and that was it. That was my extent of driving a car in any form. I went to Race of Champions, and all of a sudden you're being handed the keys to a Porsche to drift around an ice lake, and it's like, wow, this is new. And it was, but I used that experience from the sim over the years to just learn and just jump into it and go. And it was, at first, it's like everything's so new. It's like, oh, this is, you've got to get used to certain things, all the feeling of everything. But, I was my typical style of trying too hard and just attacking, especially on the way into a corner, at least gave me the commitment side of it, which was good. And then, I went into, I did that race of champions, which was a crazy experience. And that was my first sort of experience in a car properly, which was crazy. That was a crazy one. But then on a circuit race, I did 2022 Formula Ford at Knockhill and Croft. And initially, it was a bit of a baptism of fire in a way, because I was trying to be so perfect. I was maybe approaching things. I was driving too much with my head just from being used to it on the sim in 2022, back on when I was on the Formula Ford on the circuit, and I didn't get a lot of track time. I did literally my first ever test day in a Formula Ford, and then I went straight into a race weekend, which anybody in their right mind would never do, because you have no preparation. But me being me, I just like, okay, I'll jump in and give it a go. I did. And, the results were what they were, but I gained so much experience. But what was important for me and what I found really, really valuable was my improvement from that first weekend to the second weekend was massive. And it was just compounding. And I felt like by the end of that second race weekend, because I only did 2 race weekends in 2022, I was starting to learn. So I'd developed so much in a short space of time, and I was learning to unpick certain things in my mind of, okay, don't drive like this, do this, adjusting. And then going into 2023, I made a huge step, and it was like all of a sudden I was, I did my first race of the year. I hadn't drove since like May the year before or something, and then here I was racing at Silverstone, and I think it was a United Formula Ford round. I think I qualified second, and I led all but 3 laps of the first race I done, and it was like, wow, everything, you're learning on the fly, you're throwing yourself in at the deep end. It's such a crazy experience. But I think what I've found, to sort of summarize that question in a way, is on the sim, it's so easy to drive with your head and get in your own head. Whereas in the real car, the less I'm thinking and the more I'm driving off my instinct, the faster I'm going to go. And that's something that I've also used transferring back to the sim of stop to think, Lucas, you're thinking with your head, drive naturally. These are things that I've learned just through the experiences that I've had. And but that was definitely something that, after not having done real racing in 7 years, from like 2015 to 2022, I had to readjust. Like, wow, hold on, I'm driving with my head. Just drive naturally. Just don't think, drive it. Stop making it so hard. And that comes back into my overthinking nature. But I learn all these things through experience, just through trying and giving it a go. I wouldn't know these things if I didn't put myself in these situations. So, it's nice to be able to like have that. You have that self-awareness now after all these years and experiences and races. So it's cool to actually have that sort of thought process behind it now.
Yes, it must definitely have been such a steep learning curve. Also, when you joined the GB4 grid for some part-time appearances, also winning races in the time you did in the series, what was it like actually finally making it to GB4? Not a full season, but at least some of the races, and then also proving yourself. For example, winning Silverstone must have been insane.
Oh, I mean, that was one of my best memories ever. I still remember. I still have a mental screenshot of going down the hangar straight after having won that race, thinking, what is going on? This is the best day ever. But yeah, GB4, I have had so much fun racing in that championship. I'm very grateful that, I was able to sort of fund myself to put in that position, through my sim racing, and to really sort of put my money where my mouth is in a way of, okay, I believe I can do well in this, let's give it a go. And sort of really back my belief in myself in a way, and not just be all talk, because there's plenty of people in this world who are quite happy to talk, but they will never do. So for me, I was a case of, right, let's really go for it. And then the first race weekend I did was at Snetterton in 2024, and I was jumping in at the middle of the season. Drivers were up to speed, and for me, I was like, right, I've got to get going now. Got to get up to speed. So I jumped in. The testing was going well. And then, I remember distinctly on the Friday, so you do Thursday, Friday testing, and then on the Friday, we talk about, driving with your head and driving naturally, just on that previous question. I remember so distinctly, like, I think it was the second practice session on the Friday. I was like, right, Lucas, just switch your brain off and drive. I went fastest. And I was like, it was so night and day, just the difference. And I came in the pits thinking, crikey, I think I drove quite well. Like, it was the first time where I stopped, being hyper perfectionism in a way, and though at moment, and I was like, damn, that felt good. And then I came in, and it was like, you're P1, and then I went P1 again at the end of the day. So I was like, oh, I'd unlocked it. And then I qualified second. I didn't do a good job in qualifying. I think I was more than fast enough to put it on pole. I think I qualified second, but I did a terrible job of managing the traffic, and that side of it I did overthink. I just messed up the management of the session. If I'd literally just drove clean laps, it would have been pole because I was comfortably the quickest, but I was fortunate still to be in the front row. And then first race back, I got a great start, round the outside of turn 1, took the lead, didn't look back, and won on my first race back. And I thankfully have the video of my reaction. You could hear me scream over the car. I was destroying my vocal cords. It was insane. I remember punching the air coming across the line. I was just in disbelief because I was like, no way. I've came back, I've raced, and I've won. It was, I never, and as someone who obviously I had to stop karting when I was younger, to have somehow find myself in the situation driving, a GB4 car, a single seater, racing at a track and becoming a winner, it was the best feeling ever. And I shed tears in the car, I shed tears in my interview. I was just so, oh, what a feeling. And then to get to then go to Silverstone 2 weeks later, my favourite track, my favourite place, I love that. It's my favourite place in the world. I think I've said it as a few times in the past. I've been to so many Grand Prix there, and then to get to drive the full layout, and I still remember watching, I've watched Lewis race there for years, see him win, and then, to do that race, I think it was race 2 of the weekend, take the lead. I won. I think I set the record for the biggest winning margin in GB4 history. I think it was like 15.4 seconds. And that was the most fun race ever. It was so funny because I was. And not funny in an arrogant way, but like I was coming back because I was coming across the line every lap, and I'd see the gap go up by like a second and a half. It would be like 7 point something, 9 point something, 10 point something, and it got to the point where the teamwork, they'd put the board out and they were like, "This, Lucas, stop!" And I was like, guys, I'm having a great time. It's great. I was just having, it was the best thing ever. I was just in such a flow. I was just having the best time. The car felt great. The team gave me a great car, and I was just having the best time. And I remember coming across the line and just being like, no way, I just won Silverstone. I had my mum and dad there as well. It was just such a great time. And then, took 2 more wins later in that season as well. So, what a lovely memory to look back on. It was, what a privilege.
Yeah, so incredible. Also seeing your passion when you talk about it. It's genuinely so lovely. But we did touch on it a little bit. I think we can't really talk about GB4 with also not talking about funding issues. I'm just trying to find out what is it like to find sponsors, and also how expensive actually is it?
Oh, to find sponsors is, I'm good at driving, but I'm not great at a lot of other things, I'll be honest. So for me, I've always struggled on finding, proper sponsorship. I've been very, very, very grateful to those who have, helped me out in, the events that I have done. I'm forever grateful. Actually, at the weekend there, caught up with someone who sponsored me but for Brands Hatch in 2024, and I still I said, look, thank you so much for that race weekend, because it was the first time I think I'd actually seen them in person since then, and I was like, mate, thank you so much. Like, even any contributions that I had and I've been grateful to have, I've always been very grateful for. It is so tough to fund a season. It's not something that you can normally do. You really need you need to even get round through each race weekend in 2024 was really hard, and I initially set out to do 2, and then it was like, right, I can just about get 3, and then to get to the final one was like, Jesus, is going to be hard. Thankfully I did it, and I was I had I was able just to chip away at it. But then I didn't race for a year after that. I went all in to just get to the end of that year. It took a lot of personal sacrifice to do that. But again, it comes back to I wanted it so bad. I want to be racing more than anything. It's the thing I want most. I want it that badly, so I'm gonna do what it takes. So yeah, and it's hard to give a number of how much it costs, but I mean, single-seater championship season, this at the entry level of, let's say, like F4, GB4, you're probably looking north of 200k for a full season, probably, I guess. I mean, I don't know exact numbers, but you're probably looking at that sort of region. It's like, how on earth do you fight? How do you do it? How? I don't know. Like, if I knew the answer, I'd be racing. Do you know what I mean? But it's but no, I'm just grateful that I've had the opportunity to do what I've done. You know, to have achieved 4 rounds in 2024 was in itself a huge achievement. And I was so lucky to get a one-off appearance last year, because I was generally on. It was looking like I wasn't racing at all last year in 2025, and then a very last-minute opportunity came along, and I was like, oh my god, this is. I've got to grab it and I've got to go. Yeah. That's just always been the way for me. Very last minute. And then got a podium in the first race back again. So it's always like these crazy story. It's always like a crazy story. It's never just like a boring yep. It's always something crazy for me. So, but I don't mind. So it's it's tough because and I'm so grateful to be going back racing this week as we record this. I'm like, wow, that because again I know the feeling of last year thinking I wasn't going to race. And it was really close to that, and I said to myself after I did that race weekend in GB4, I still remember going out the pit lane for the first time at Donington, going down the Craner curves, and I was like, oh, I just had the biggest smile on my face. I was like, this is the best feeling ever. I just sort of said to myself, I cannot, within my own control, let it be another year before I drive again. I gotta drive. I love this too much, and I'm gonna, I'm just gonna somehow fight at any opportunity to get any opportunity I can to be in a car, because it's what I want to do more than anything. And yeah, I'm just grateful that for any opportunity I get, I'm grateful for it, and I'm just so excited. It's just, I love it. And I just also, but I think it's not possible to have got to this point without having utmost belief in yourself as well. You know, you can't get through this I don't think you can get through it with too much doubt in yourself. Of course, anyone humanly will doubt elements of like performance. Like, I'm not saying like you're blindly arrogant to, your own abilities and sort of these things, but for me, you've got to have a rock solid belief that you can do it. And that in itself is powerful. The belief, is amazing what you can sort of bring into existence through that alone. So yeah, it's racing's a crazy world. I wish it was of course racing, the accessibility of racing is obviously a huge conversation these days, and it's not something that gets cheaper either. It's the opposite thing with racing. Of course, with racing's getting more popular, Formula 1 has never been more successful or had so many eyes on it, and that naturally trickles down into all forms of motorsport. I mean, look at the effect Max Verstappen had going to the Nordschleife. Motorsport is only going to grow, which I think is fantastic. So, but yeah, it's not something that's going to get cheaper anytime soon, is it? So, yeah, it's always a fight to be in a car, but it's nothing matches it.
No. Obviously, you've done incredibly well, both in sim racing and in real life racing. How do you describe like the training preparing for like sim races versus real racing? How does it differ from each other, the training towards leading up to a race?
Yeah, so I think in the sim you have so much training. That's the thing, is you have a just unlimited amount of practice, which in some ways annoying, because you're just like, you've already done weeks of practice, and you still probably let's say you do a 3-week block of practice for an esports event, you'll still have a week to go, and you're like, God, again, like more, like you're just always it's constant. You've got to never stop looking for improvement, and it's such a grind. Esports training is just purely grind. It is constant laps, training, millisecond improvements. In the real car, unless obviously you have lots of funding or lots of testing, you've got to sort of, for me, it's always sort of been like arrive and drive and learn on the go and try and like, you don't get the training. You've got to, but I like that element of it in a way where it's sort of like it's more raw. It's more like I don't want to sound like one of those people who's like, oh, it's more pure. It's more some people take it into a different whole category, but for me, it's I really enjoy the sort of the jump on and go element of it, as much as that is a challenge. So yeah, for me, that's one of the key differences between the sim and the real is that the sim you're just constantly driving non-stop, and then in the real car, the way you obviously build up is a little bit different as well. I mean, in the real car, if you build up too quickly and you smash the car to bits, that's not great. And the sim, you'll often have, naysayers. It's like, wow, you don't have you've got the reset button on the simulator. And I was like, I didn't realise that, mate. Well done. You got an observation. It's like, congrats. But it's, you have that element of it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I love the real racing's fun. I mean, anytime you're in a car, it's like, it's always fun.
Yes. I know you spoke about a couple of moments that you mentioned from your racing career, but if you could pick one, what would be your favorite memory from racing so far?
Oh God, that's hard. I would say it's hard to not say my world championship
Yeah.
in sim racing, because I worked so hard and the amount of energy that went into that season, how badly I wanted it, how many moments that I could have let it slip as well. I could have bottled it so many times. I've really had my back against the wall in a couple of particular races where I could have just crumbled, and I look back at it, proud that I at least didn't, and I really. I don't want to have this sound arrogant, but I feel like I earned that championship, and just without doubt in a way, just because I just put so much into it. I just literally had so many times where I could have thrown it off and lost it, and I held it together and, put in really good performances as well. I mean, I had my Zandvoort performance where, I dominated it in the wet. I loved those conditions. Brazil was massive clutch that year. I mean, I had one run on new tyres in the Q3, whereas my championship rivals had 2 or 3 sets new. So I pulled it and I won that race again with the wet weather. So, I clutched up there. I won the opening 2 races of the season, so I had some really strong performances, and then even when we weren't winning, we were still doing really well. I don't think I finished lower than 7th that year, and that's how you build a championship campaign, is by the consistency. So yeah, that was a hard fought championship, and the emotion. I mean, I've got the clip on it's one of my most viewed like TikTok clips, I think, as well, where I'm like screaming world champion, I'm just losing it. And you always get, it's always mad how years later people come in and it's like, they try and clown you for it, and it's like, you're just sort of like looking at your phone, just like, you're not real. So it's just the internet these days. But it's wow, the emotion was insane. Like, I've had I always wear my heart on my sleeve. I've always had big reactions and these sort of things, and I think that in the modern age you do get it's unfortunately you do get like sort of performative elements these days, which is when I look at it and it's like, that is fake as hell. What that you sort of look at it and you think, come on. But for me, I always try and I don't like hide my true feeling or my true emotion. Good, bad, different, and whatever it may be. So yeah, I just completely lost it when I won it. But that's on the sim side. I think I've been very, very fortunate to have done. I mean, in my real racing, that's a hard thing to pick as well, because I've been so fortunate. I think the thing that people probably say to me most is when I went to Race of Champions, I think. And I raced against Sebastian Vettel. That's the one that people, I think, bring up to me most in my real racing. And that was like, I remember crossing the line, and it was like the closest thing to a panic attack you can possibly feel. You're like, I don't know who won. It was so close because we crossed the line like this, so I had no idea. And then I get told when I came back that this Terry Grant, who he just came up to me and he was like, "You just beat Sebastian Vettel," and I was like, "What do you mean?" And it was like, "You just beat Sebastian Vettel," and I was like, "Oh my god," that was crazy. And then to come back the next year and to race against Valtteri, Mika, Seb again, Mick again, Mick Schumacher, it was crazy experiences. So Race of Champions is always fond. I'm not doing a very good job of picking a favourite. I'm just I hope that doesn't sound like I'm just listing achievements, but it's no, for me, I'm just grateful for all the opportunities I get, so yeah, but winning the esports title was special, but then I have such a connection to my real racing as well, so these moments are always they're all special. It's such a boring answer, but I always enjoy, I try and savor the moments as well, because I know that it's so hard to be in those positions, so but yeah, it's the best feeling ever. It's just the best feeling. Nothing, sort of as I touched on at the beginning of this, at the beginning of this, is nothing comes close to that feeling, especially when you win and you're really like, you're in that moment, you're like full of adrenaline, you're just, the passion just comes out at that point. And yeah, it's what keeps motivating you to keep going as well, I think, as well. It's what it's what like motivates you to like achieve that feeling again. So yeah, that's sort of like the addiction of motorsport. That winning feeling is addictive, and that's you're always chasing it. So yeah, and I'm no exception. So.
No, all these incredible experiences are absolutely insane, and I completely get that you can't just pick one. Now, obviously, both virtually and in real life, you have raced at a lot of different circuits. Now, is there a circuit that you haven't raced at yet that you would love to try to race on at some point, and in what car would you prefer to drive in?
That's such a good question. I've been lucky to drive some great tracks.
Yeah.
Silverstone, Brands Hatch GP. Wow, what a track. God, that's tricky. One track? Oh, there's a lot to pick from. I mean,
you can name a couple if you want. It's fine.
I've always wanted to drive the Nordschleife. I love that track. I've always enjoyed driving on the sim. I think driving that in a GT3 would be insane. So that's one thing. I love watching like Jimmy Broadbent's videos when he goes racing there. He's racing in a Porsche Cup car now, but he raced the BMW M4 GT4. M4, I think it was the GT4 car last year. With Super GT and whatnot. So, I think that'd be cool. Nordschleife. God, I'm not picky. The problem is I'm not picky. I don't have like a standout track of I need to drive this track. Like, there's so many tracks. I mean, that's tough. I don't know. I mean, I would always, and I mean, in what car? I mean, I'd have to say I'd love to drive an F1 car. If I was to pick my dream day in a car, let's make this simple equation a bit easier for me. Dream day in an F1 car. McLaren MP423, the car that Lewis won his title in. Honestly, I'd probably just drive it around Silverstone.
Yeah.
It's not a track I've not drove, but it is my favourite track, and I think the emotional element of driving that track in a car like that would be mind-blowing. So, yeah, but I guess to think of tracks that I haven't drove, I think of Spa, I think of, I don't know, just, I'm not picky. I just love driving new tracks. Like, I don't know. I actually don't know. I've been sort of, when I put myself in the spot, I don't actually know what track I would like to drive. Just any. Anytime I get on the track, I'm just grateful to be on it. And I mean, we're fortunate in the UK to have so many great racetracks as well. So I've been very lucky to already drive some cool tracks, which I guess, had I not drive, I'd say like if I hadn't drove Brands Hatch GP, for example, then I'd be like, I want to drive that, or Open Park, or these sort of things. There's some awesome tracks in this country. But yeah, I don't know. I'd need to look at like a track list and think, I want to drive this,
Yeah.
this, this. Because
Yeah.
when I'm on the spot, I'm like,
There's so many.
There's so many.
Yeah, also we completely get your pick of Silverstone as well. It's just such an iconic track. We've also been lucky enough to be at the F1 race last year, and we're going again this year. It's just something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so special.
Yeah, the Silverstone. I've been to Silverstone 2009, 2016, 17, 18, 19 for Friday practice, 2021, 2022. Was I there in 23? Yeah, I was. I wasn't there in 24. I was there last year. I regret missing 24. I hate myself for that. That was a terrible decision.
Oh.
That was a bad decision for me to miss that year.
Yeah.
I'm going this year, so that's great. I'm going for the MotoGP as well this year, so that'll be really fun. I look
Ooh.
forward to that. So yeah, I just love the British Grand Prix. The fans are amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's something that I think stands out amongst maybe other races as well, is that the British fans are just phenomenal. They're passionate for racing as well. It's all, when there's a good move, they cheer. It's not, obviously if it's a British driver that does it, it's usually pretty ideal. So yeah, I think, and we also have, there's quite a few British drivers on the grid as well. So very, very, the British fans are pretty fortunate in that respect to have so many people to root for. And yeah, I think Silverstone it's just my favourite place, really. Every time I go there, it feels special every single time. So I look forward to going there for the Grand Prix and enjoying that. And then also for MotoGP, I went to MotoGP. I'm going on a random rant now. What am I doing?
Okay.
I'm going. I went to the MotoGP Friday practice in 2019, which I think was pretty cool. I didn't go for the whole weekend, but I went up for the Friday practice. And I'm grateful I did, because I got to see, Rossi on a Yamaha, Marquez on a Honda. I think that was the last year Lorenzo rode as well, but he had a back injury that year, so he was on the Repsol Honda as well. Yeah, that was good fun, and they're so fast. I can't wait to see it again in person. But yeah, for me, I just love motorsport as a whole. It's not just MotoGP, F1. I love IndyCar. If it's got a set of wheels on it, I'll probably watch it. Honestly, it's yeah, I'm just passionate all things racing, and this comes back to why I'm not picky, because I don't know, I can't pick a track. I can pick a car a bit easier because I do have those sort of things, but
yeah,
I just love so many things that I'll do anything. It doesn't need to be one thing or the other. So yeah.
I definitely think the British fans just love motorsports, because we saw ELMS come back to Silverstone last year, and I was there, and it was record breaking, and they're coming back. So hopefully they bring WEC back as well. It's just, there is so much love for it here that everything should be here.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Now you've mentioned that you just love all motorsport. If we ignore the funding part of it, what racing series would you want to pursue? What could you see yourself racing in?
If budget wasn't a question, GB3. I'd love to do that. That would be if I had to just off the top of my head pick something, I'd do GB3. Because that's the natural next step from GB4, and of the budget. GB4 budget was already a challenge for me, so for GB3, yeah, that's tricky. But for me, I'd love to drive one of those cars. I'd take, even if someone said to me, Lucas, would you like to come drive one for 20 minutes? Tell me where and when. I'll do it. I don't care where I need to go. I'll do it. Because that's the opportunity of a lifetime to drive those sort of cars. And yeah, I'd love to. I would. How cool would that be? I just even thinking about it. I thought driving GB4 was amazing. So I couldn't imagine how fast a GB3 car must be. So. Yeah, if I was to pick a racing series, and I'm saying, it's not like I'm saying, oh, I want to be an F2 or F3. I'm not jumping to the higher extremes. For me, I would love to do, I'd love to take just that next step, even to say GB3, and then from there you do whatever it be. But if budget wasn't a thing, then I would do GB3. I think I've actually asked myself that question mentally before, I swear, because that's why I was able to think of it so quickly. I was like, GB3 for sure, because that'd be sick. For me, I'm open to driving any car. I'm obviously single seaters is my specialty, if that makes sense, and that's my my first love, but I'll drive anything. Literally anything. GT3, GT4. I'm driving in Midget next week, which is really going to be really fun, and that's something very unique in itself and very, very, very awesome. But if I was to, GB3 would be awesome.
Yeah, you kind of brought it up there, but I'm actually very interested. We know that you're racing in the Midget Trophy France season opener, but could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's I'm very, very lucky to be, taking part in that first round at Nogaro this week, which is crazy to say this week now. It's race week. It's Ross week, guys. Let's go. That brought that meme. Oh my god, what was that? 2020. But yeah, I'm going racing this week in the Midget 2-liter turbo. Which is going to be very, very fun. And I need to say a massive thanks to Midget and to Keanu Leoto, who have invited me to be their guest driver for this round, which I'm enormously grateful to them for, and to all those who have helped put this together. Big thanks to them. And I'm so excited. The car is first time we're doing racing in a closed cockpit car. It's quite light. It's got decent power, and it's the track. I got the fortunate opportunity to try a Midget 2-liter, so not the turbo version, but I drove the old car as such around the track that I'm going to be racing in France a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's a proper old school track with grass runoff, and it's very, very fun, very technical, very challenging, and I'm really excited to go racing on that. And yeah, it's going to be a 30-minute practice, so I've not got long to get up to speed, so I've got to learn the car, sort of know what any setup changes I want to make, know what I need to improve, and then it's a 15-minute quali, and then 2 20-minute races across the event. And I'm really excited because it's an SRO event, so it's going to be French F4 is going to be there, I believe, lots of other championships and series, so it's going to be a phenomenal race weekend, and I really look forward to trying to create as much content around it as I can, because this almost feels like I'm hoping a little bit of a beginning of another chapter for me, in the sense that I'm getting to make some content around this sort of thing. I've always had my time preoccupied with esports and trading and all these things, so I'm really trying to tap into areas that I've not been able to as easily. So I'm going to try and make sure I do some decent content out of this and make sure I record plenty, because I'm going to be making a YouTube video on it, and of course there'll be plenty of short form content. I'll have my onboards, and I can't wait to get going. So yeah, and again, a massive thanks to those involved for helping put it together, to Midget, to Keanu Leoto. Without them having me as a guest driver, I wouldn't be doing it. So I'm very, very thankful to them, and I'm super excited. And yeah, it's going to be fun, because the test that I did a few weeks ago was very positive. So I'm looking forward to hoping to translate that going into the actual race weekend.
It sounds super exciting, and we're sure you'll do super well there. Definitely fingers crossed for us, and good luck this upcoming weekend. Now, obviously, you have announced recently that you will be doing this. Do you have any other plans for this season that you can't tell us about yet, or are you still working on it?
So I've got the Midget race coming up this week. I might have something later in the year. I have got it provisionally sorted, but I can't say anything on that yet. So we'll wait and see. That's an exclusive for you, actually, technically as well. But, no, but it's I've recently sorted hopefully another opportunity for in the coming time, let's say. But out with that, for me, my objective is to be in a race car at any given moment. So if someone wants for me to come along and try their race car, record a video of it, or do anything, I'll do it. My goal is to be in a race car. If I could be in a race car 7 days a week, I really would, honestly. So for me, my goal is to be in a car as much as I can, to make the best of opportunities I get, to try and make content around these things, and just enjoy it. It's what I want to do more than anything in my life. So it's for me. I look forward to this upcoming week, and to hopefully something coming up after that as well. And then we go from there, really. This year, I'm so excited just for, I feel like it's just a big opportunity, really, this year to enjoy things, to try new things, to hopefully, just try and, from all the racing opportunities I've had, I've always been quite a crazy coming together. So, I'm always just open to anything that comes along, really. So I'm just so excited to, see what's in store and just cross my fingers that I can get in a race car as much as I can. But I'm grateful that I at least know that I've got something coming up. Usually it's like a hope, but it's nice to know that I've got something, which is a rare feeling. So I'm just really holding on to that and looking forward to racing outside the country for the first time as well. That's going to be mental. I've had my international license for how many years? 2024, 2025. I think I've had my international license for quite a while now, and I'm finally getting to use it. So it's outside the UK, so I'm kind of looking forward to that side of it. So we'll just have to wait and see what the future holds. But I'm excited.
Yeah, very, very exciting. You have mentioned that you've had times when you're out of a seat. I'm just curious, just like, what do you do? Are you constantly scouting for opportunities? How do you deal with those periods between not having a race?
Yeah, sometimes it can be really challenging. Mentally, you're sometimes you're so often. I feel like you are your own worst enemy, if that makes sense. I've certainly been guilty of that over the years at many occasions. I think we've all been that at some point in a way, where especially over the last year, 2025 was a massive challenge year because I was like always trying to hopefully get in a car and things weren't happening. And I had some this winter's actually been quite a good maybe a good example, because over the winter, I did my GB4 appearance last year, which was in start of October, and then I had some discussions over the winter with some really, really cool opportunities that I was really enthusiastic to try and make happen. But again, the budget for me is just the limitation. I'm still very grateful to even for the people that I spoke to, for even outreaching to me for the potential opportunities and whatnot, and that in itself is a massive privilege. So if those people see that, I'm still very grateful. But unfortunately for me, I don't have 6 figures of budget. It's just the way it is. But it's an honor to at least have these things come along. And then I was meant to be in a car and the 9th of January, for example. So I was trying to get this year kickstarted a lot earlier than it was. So I was meant to be in a car on the 9th of January, and that get cancelled. I was meant to drive on the Friday, get cancelled on the Monday by the organisers. I think it was out of anyone's control. It was the way it happens. It's just racing. I lost the money in the flights and whatnot, so that was frustrating. But it's the way it goes. I'd rearranged that test for, I think it was the 23rd of February or something like that. But I had actually surgery on the 2nd of February on the side of my face, which I mentioned briefly in one of my videos that I uploaded at some point in the last little while, and that I was hoping the recovery wasn't going to be as long as it was. They said to me maybe 6 or so weeks, depending how you feel, but it was like 3 weeks after, so I was like, fudge. So I was like, that was just unfortunate timing. But then I got back in a car after 5 weeks at the start of March, so finally got the year going. And through this whole time, your brain is just, especially through even February, not even that long ago, it was February, I couldn't do a lot because I was, recovering with obviously the type of, surgery that I had. Just like the side of your face could be quite sensitive. I couldn't even wear this headset properly for ages. So it was like, you're questioning things, you're hoping things do well, but everything's fine, nothing to worry about, all good. Drove the car, didn't feel anything, spot on. So that was really nice. And it's just such a great feeling to finally get this year going. We're nearly in April, but I feel like I'm just getting started. So it's an awesome feeling. But through these times when you're not racing, you are just actively seeking opportunity. Sometimes those opportunities come to you, sometimes you go to the opportunity, and then you just hope that you can work something out that allows it to happen. But unfortunately, the fundamental variable of if it's fully budget related, then it's always going to be a challenge. But if there's a way you can make, if there's a will, there's sometimes a way. So, it's probably one of the hardest parts. So I think if you ask a lot of race drivers, not that I'm a full-time race driver, so I don't want to proclaim I'm something that is, I'm not technically not as such, but for me, if you ask like professional race drivers, sometimes the hardest part of race drivers is the not knowing, or the waiting, or the worrying, over the winters and whatnot. So that's definitely a big challenge element of it. But yeah, for me, and it's also weird because I'm 25 this year, and I'm like, how the heck? First of all, what the hell? Second of all, how it does change your. It's not like when I was 18 and in 6 years' time you're 24. In 6 years' time, your life looks slightly different and all these things. So your thought processes, shift ever so slightly. But I'm still young. I still feel like I've got a lot of things that I can pursue and try and achieve. And it comes back to I truly do believe that if I'm given the opportunity to do something in motorsport, that I can do something good with it. I have the true belief that I can achieve good things. But I just need to grab opportunities where there are and hope that I can make something of them. And that's what I do every time. So, everything I've achieved up to this point has always just been trying to make the best of them and prove what I can do. And I'm probably not actually that good as well. Like, I think with the way modern social media is as well, people are very... I've always worried about coming across the right way. Overly so, I would say. In modern social media, it's a lot of ego bragging, and it's not very humble sometimes. But that's the culture now, in a weird way. Yeah. So I've always really been worried about perception and making sure that I don't come across arrogant, and that I don't like when people use the word humble sometimes, because it's people twist it. People say it when they're absolutely the furthest thing from it sometimes. But it's I think I've never been good at like shouting about my achievements sometimes, but the way I always try and look at it is I just try and when I do something, I'll just try and let it speak for itself. Yeah. So if someone looks at what I've done, that should hopefully tell the story of what I could do and what I would love to achieve. So, yeah.
Yeah, you've definitely achieved some incredible things so far, and we cannot wait to see where your career will take you moving forwards from here. Now, I think we have kept you for too long already. We could actually just keep going for ages, but maybe we'll be able to do a second part of this at some point down the road. But it was super nice having you here for the interview and talking to you.
Thank you. I've honestly been an absolute pleasure to chat with you, so thank you very much for having me. And it's hopefully fingers crossed. Thank you very much. It's I look forward to racing this week and going from there. And I'm very excited. So thank you both for having me, and it's been fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. It was incredible to hear all of your perspectives, and we will definitely be following your career closely.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so we hope you enjoyed this episode and enjoyed listening to Lucas's story. Also, let us know if there are any other specific drivers you would want us to host here on the podcast. And definitely make sure to follow us across all social media, because we'll upload different things across Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, everything.
Don't forget to follow Lucas as well. Very, very important. We share the love here at Road to Glory. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.